Welcome to another Town Hall Thursday. I am Darryl W. Perry, Libertarian for Governor, and I'm joined this week by Spike Cohen, who he did not get bitten by a bat, but his running mate did. He just had another travel-related thing a couple of weeks ago when he was originally booked. So, Spike, let's start off by you telling us a little bit about how that bus tour went.
Oh, thank you, Daryl. And no, I was not bitten by a bat. We did briefly consider having me get like scratched by a pangolin or something in solidarity, but we ended up nixing that because there were many reasons we decided not to do that. But yeah, no, our bus tour went amazingly well. I actually just got back yesterday from the final leg of it. We started in Cincinnati, Ohio on the 19th of August. And we finished 3 days ago in Olympia, Washington, on the 7th. And so it was not quite 3 weeks. And we hit 17 cities and multiples that we went through like 20 something states on our way to doing that. It was the most incredible thing I've ever done in that regard. Certainly the most hectic travel schedule I've ever had. And we're actually finalizing a second leg of that later on in October. And in the meantime, I'll be visiting some other states as well. But no, it was fantastic. It went perfectly.
And aside from the hecticness of the bus tour, what's it like running for, or not just running for vice president, but actually being the Libertarian nominee for vice president, which means that you've got to do a lot of stuff after the convention.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's interesting. So after I got the nomination, I started getting text messages and calls from people who have run for state and national office, all offering their condolences. And I thought, well, that's interesting. But no, I've had a fantastic time. It has been busy. And I envisioned that it would be. I mean, there would be no reason to think it wouldn't be busy. I did not intend to, for example, just go home and occasionally go on MSNBC to tell people to vote Democrat, for example. I chose not to do that. We have been actively hitting the trail. Even before we started doing the in-person stuff, I was doing 5 to 6 hours of Zoom and these types of interviews, podcasts and media interviews every single day. Now we're doing the in-person part of it, and it's incredible to see the engagement that we're getting from people. While our opponents are hiding in their bunkers and basements away from the wrath of the people who are out in the streets protesting against the expected outcome of the bad Republican policies, we are actually out there on the streets with them, meeting them every day and talking with them about their concerns and showing them how our common sense libertarian ideas are the solutions to the problems that they're facing.
And I saw something in the paper today, the local paper here in Manchester, New Hampshire, but of course it was national news that just sort of shows how Joe Biden and Donald Trump are really the same person, minus an orange skin tone.
Right.
And a couple of bankruptcies, that is. Apparently, Joe Biden's tax policy now is to have a 10% tax penalty for businesses that take production offshore, and give a 10% tax deduction to businesses that bring jobs to the U.S.
Yeah, so basically the companies that can afford the cost of demonstrating compliance with those things will get those breaks, and everyone else will get the taxes, meaning you, if you have a small business. You could not possibly afford the cost of demonstrating compliance with those federal regulations if they were to be put in place. And because of the cost of those regulations will be externalized to the consumers of your goods and services, or you just go out of business.
Right.
So this is, or you just pay the tax and you're that much more hobbled behind big businesses who will continue to outsource labor as needed and do whatever hurdles and hoops to either demonstrate compliance with the law, or just get exemptions from it, carve out exemptions from it. So, perfect example. And of course, we know that the reason that jobs are going overseas in the first place is because of the regulatory burdens that have been put in place by Republicrats and their cronies, which have driven up the cost of doing business in America and hiring Americans. You get rid of that, and most of the problem goes away anyway.
Yeah, and we know that over the last couple of years, I don't want to say the last full 3 years, because a lot of the really bad tariffs came in within the last, I don't know, 18 months or so.
Yeah, last year and a half. Yeah, yeah.
And then Donald Trump says, oh, well, because our farmers are being hurt
Mm-hmm.
because of China's tariffs,
Yeah.
we have to give them a bailout.
Yep. Yep. There was I believe it was Reagan, and I hate that it was Reagan. Reagan has some of the best quotes about government, even though he was one of the worst presidents we've had in recent memory. He actually was an example of the things he would say were bad about government, oddly enough. But he had a quote about government that, and I believe it was Reagan, that, government basically taxes companies until they can't survive, and taxes Americans until they can't survive, and then gives them subsidies and tells them, look at all the help I get. Harry Brown, and I always massacre his wording. I always mess it up. But basically, government comes in. Harry Brown used to say, government comes in and beats someone up, takes their money, uses some of it to buy them some crutches, and says, hey, look, if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have any crutches. This is what government does. It makes us reliant on them. Not just so that we are now having to pay to vote for them to be able to, continue getting the stuff they're giving us, but also because the more anxious you can make people, the more scared you can make them, the more destitute you can make them, the easier it is to make them hopeless. And when you can make someone hopeless, you can break their spirit and convince them that if I just give them the rest of all my power and money and wealth, then they can just do whatever they want, and hopefully they'll take care of me. At this point, I don't even know or care. I don't have any hope left. They want you to be as hopeless as you are right now.
I'm thinking here because there are a lot of people that are out protesting almost constantly since basically the day that you were nominated as vice president. But they're still out there, like, they're in kind of a hopeless situation where they're just, saying, please stop killing people that look like me.
Right.
And they're getting beaten and pepper sprayed, and they're getting beaten some more. They're getting arrested. Journalists that are, covering this and documenting all of these horrible crimes by the police are getting beaten and pepper sprayed and arrested. But at the same time, it seems to me that they're feeling hopeless, so they're going out to protest, but by getting beaten and pepper sprayed and assaulted, that's just encouraging them to continue even though they feel hopeless.
Well, and that's the thing, this is sort of the fatal flaw in the plan of the status, is that yes, if you make people hopeless, they'll sometimes just give up and shrug their shoulders and say, fine, do whatever you want. Some of them don't. Some of them do the opposite. They become, it's like, backing an animal into a corner or something.
Right.
It wouldn't have otherwise hurt you, but you've now put this person in a position where they don't care anymore. They're not scared. They've lost everything, or in their mind, they've lost everything. They've lost everything that mattered to them. Right. And now you've got someone you've essentially weaponized them against you. What I am often doing when I go to Black Lives Matter protests, when I go to gun rights protests, when I talk to lockdown protesters, I validate their concerns. They're all legitimate concerns. And then I talk to them about how we got here, and just as importantly, how to get out of it. And just that demonstrating that we care often talks them off the ledge of doing more radical or violent things. And instead of recognizing that there is a path to actually solving these problems by kicking out the people that are making their lives harder and worse.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned going to Black Lives Matter rallies, because I've heard a theory about you. I'm guessing that you have seen this as well, based on
I've seen a few. I'm interested which one you're about to talk about, but I've seen a few.
The theory that the only reason you married your wife is because she's black, and you wanted to, in 2020, while running for vice president, say Black Lives Matter and have people actually believe you because you have a black wife.
Okay, and to prove this, I never mention my wife is black unless it's brought up. Just to prove that
or that there's a picture, like I didn't know that your wife was black until I saw
Say it,
pictures of you and her.
because it doesn't matter.
I didn't actually know you were married until I saw pictures of you and her.
Exactly. I mean, I talk about having a wife when appropriate. And if someone asks me about the fact that my wife's black, I certainly am not hiding it by any stretch. My profile picture is a picture with myself and my wife, who is obviously black, but that's a new one. I got married 10 years ago. Well, first, I fell in love with a woman in 2007, who I then married in 2010, all part of my diabolical scheme to run for the vice presidency of the White House and say that Black Lives Matter and that people, that's a new one. That is an exciting new
It's one of those
development in horseshoe theory there.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah.
That's a new one.
It's like the whole predictive programming thing about, oh, well, there was this movie back in whatever year that showed this, and now we have this technology and blah, blah, blah. So that means that this person knew it was going to happen.
This person knew. Yeah. No, the reason I married my wife is because she's amazing and I don't deserve her. And I figured I would get her into a contract with me before she realized that she was way better that she was like way more attractive and smarter than me. I don't, Darryl, I intentionally, if you never brought up the fact that my wife was black, I wouldn't have mentioned it. Not because I'm scared of it, not because I have anything to hide, but because it's not relevant to why I'm running for office, and it's not relevant to my policies. I don't believe that black people matter because my wife's black. I believe that even before I had a black wife. And I don't think police brutality should end and the war on drugs should end because my wife is black. My wife has never been brutalized by the police, and she's neither selling nor using drugs. So it has, in that way, it does not directly affect us in any way. But that is definitely, I thought you were going to do the one that the reason I'm running for office is because as a Jew, I am, like all other Jews, I'm trying to turn everything into Marxism, and that, I was doing a Marxist takeover, anarcho-capitalist that I am, doing a Marxist takeover of the Libertarian Party. But this is a way more exciting theory that I presume has many layers to it, since it's been going, It's been 13 years in the making.
Yeah, I had not heard the one about the Marxist
takeover
of the Libertarian Party.
Marxist takeover.
I do recall the one that, and I forget if this happened just before you got the nomination or just after, that you were trying to destroy the Libertarian Party by taking your shirt off
with my nipples.
On a podcast.
Yeah.
Or technically a vodcast because it was video. I would not have seen the picture had someone not taken a screenshot and posted it. I can't believe what Spike did.
Yeah.
But apparently while you were topless, you were ranting about police brutality.
Well, and that's the thing. So the interesting thing about that is there were two major reasons behind why I did Nipplegate. And neither of them was to use my nipples to destroy the Libertarian Party. Coming into having the nomination, there were two main groups of people. One were about a third of the delegates wanted me to take, since Vermin didn't get the nomination and I did, they wanted me to take the mantle of Vermin and basically run as a satirical candidate in the general election. That was something I never planned to do, regardless of who the presidential nominee was. Even when I was running with Vermin, I was always the more serious candidate. And it was always intended that I would be the serious one, no matter who I was paired with, that I would be the one talking about policy and all of that kind of stuff. So that was not ever going to happen. But I had to make sure that folks in that camp understood that I wasn't selling out, that this was always my intention. There was another 2/3 of delegates, or maybe half of delegates, who I guess I should say just under half of delegates, who weren't happy I got the nomination and were kind of often picking apart things like, whether my tie matched my shirt, or whether, what my hair looked like, or, kind of really getting into the weeds about, little like things that no one was really looking at and saying, this is why we can't win because Spike doesn't have cufflinks or whatever. And so me taking my shirt off during a podcast did three things. Number one, it gave a jolt to the people who wanted me to now put a boot on my head and run as a satirical candidate, that I'm not going to do that, but I'm also not selling out. I do what I want. I campaign the way that I wish to, as I always intended to. It also was a jolt to the people who were going to pick apart every single thing I did, how, whether I had too much or not enough stubble or whatever. Now they're just happy I have a shirt on, and many of them are now my biggest fans. The third thing it did was it had tens of thousands of people watched that show. It was like 10 times more than the normal audience that they got. And when they listened to it, they heard us talk about police brutality and the war on drugs and civil asset forfeiture and the militarization of the police state and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Donald Trump and a bunch of serious things. Because during that entire show, not once did I crack a single joke. I'm not wearing a shirt. I'm holding my stuffed narwhal the whole time, but I'm talking about serious things, and I got people's attention. And we had people that reached out to us who said, I would have never paid attention to libertarianism except you didn't have a shirt on and you were holding some kind of sparkly thing, and you kept my attention, and now I'm a libertarian. So I accomplished everything that I wanted to there, but it was also with the understanding that moving forward, I never, up until that day, I never really intended to do it. I'm never going to do it again. My shirt is on today. It always remains on. I've been wearing a suit and tie every single day for the last 3 weeks on the bus tour. Which is what I always intended on doing.
But did the tie match the shirt that matched the jacket that matched the shoes?
Every single time it did. And just to prove it, my wife picked it out most of the time.
Excellent. And I know that you've been, basically on the road for the last 3 weeks. So I don't know if you've necessarily caught up with all of the social medias, but I saw something going around the last couple of days about a teacher somewhere. Doesn't matter where it is. Let's just say any town, USA.
Right.
They're doing the Zoom instruction. The everybody's at home and they're Zooming in.
Right.
This teacher has a policy that all of her students must wear shoes during class, even though they're in their own house. Are you wearing shoes right now?
No.
Are you wearing pants?
Yes, I am. I'm wearing shorts, actually. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And the only reason I asked that is because, like I said, I rarely wear pants while I'm Zooming in to my classes.
Okay.
Because, I'm at home. Like, let me just throw on a shirt.
Right.
And
how would she even know if they're wearing shoes? Does she make them show them her shoes?
I'm guessing. Everybody was just circulating the screenshot, but of like an instruction to the parents, but it didn't say how she was verifying. But also an old TV trick is a lot of times the newscasters, because they're shot from the waist up most of the time, except for the weather guy, they're not wearing, slacks.
Right.
They're wearing shorts.
Right, they're wearing whatever, yeah.
Yeah, but you look presentable on TV. So what difference does it make if you're wearing pants or shoes if nobody's seeing anything below the nipples?
First of all, if I had a kid, I wouldn't want them wearing shoes in the house. We take our shoes off before we get in the house.
Yeah.
That's interesting. What a weird thing to get caught up on.
Yeah, there's a lot of people, and so that there were discussions about whether it's a racist policy or a classist policy, because there are some people, mostly middle class, that just wear the shoes in the house. But lower class and upper class, in my experience, and of course, that's not to say that every middle class person, but the people in the upper class, they want to preserve the carpet. Take your shoes off. Want to preserve the carpet.
That's how I was raised. I mean, we don't even have carpeting, and we take our shoes off.
Or you want to preserve the hardwood.
Your shoes have been outside all day. You've been walking around with all this stuff outside, especially during a pandemic. I've been walking around in everyone's snot and stuff, and now I'm going to bring it into my house? No.
And then lower class, you want to take your shoes off to preserve them so you're not walking in them a lot.
Right,
so
you're
you
not
don't
walking
have to buy shoes.
Yeah, I don't know if it was intentionally classist or racist or anything like that. It certainly, I mean, there are ethnicities that really, really frown upon having, I know East Asians tend to it's a big no-no to have your shoes on inside. You take your shoes off outside. So that would be like telling everyone they have to wear a hat inside or something like that. I don't.
I've got Muslim friends, and their practice is you take your shoes off when you go inside. But it's just a really strange policy. Just because we're on Zoom right now, I was just curious, are you wearing shoes? I actually took
I'm not wearing shoes.
Shoes are uncomfortable.
I'm not wearing shoes or socks. I do wear pants because God forbid I have to get up for something and everyone sees that I'm not wearing pants. And I could see like in a classroom setting saying, "Hey, listen, you got to wear pants because if
Yeah.
you got up or the
Right.
camera falls or whatever, we don't want anyone seeing anything they shouldn't have." I could say shoes. That
Yeah.
makes no sense to me whatsoever. What a
Yeah.
weird. That's an interesting ball.
Yeah.
I hope they end that because like I said, I would be mad at my kid wearing shoes in the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now the
And
kid's got to go
just
learn outside on the porch.
just very strange, very interesting. And I wanted your thoughts on this
Yeah,
because, like I said,
that
I
is a
know that you've been
very.
traveling. I'm not sure how much news you've been able to keep up on, and I
I
realize
hadn't
that's
heard that
not
one.
news.
We've been keeping up on like major items, but apparently
Right.
my comms team didn't think that I needed to know about that. But man, what a weird. That's really weird.
Yeah. So let's sort of get down into discussion of some actual policy.
Okay.
And I realize that, as the vice presidential candidate, it's sort of your job to back up the presidential candidate.
Mm-hmm.
And I almost said I had Spike on your Spike. I had Joe Jorgensen on
Yeah.
a few weeks ago. And so we talked a lot about her platform. But what is it like as the vice presidential candidate to sort of just back her up on some of those things? And you already touched on the police brutality, ending
Mm-hmm.
the war on drugs, demilitarizing the police, although there's actually a fairly decent argument, not that I entirely agree with it, that the police aren't militarized enough just because, hold on, I saw the look on your face, because the military
Oh, I
has
see. Yeah.
very strict rules of engagement. So, they're not just randomly shooting people because
That's a fair
he
point.
was running
Yeah.
away. I thought he had a gun. No, you didn't think he had a gun. You knew that you could get away with it by saying you thought he had a gun.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So if they had the same rules of engagement, there would be a lot fewer police shootings.
Yeah, obviously, when we talk about militarization, we mean the equipment and the specific training for the use of equipment that they're getting,
Right.
which is the only way you use this equipment. The only reason you would use an armored personnel carrier or a tank is for militant applications. It is not for community policing. And yet they're trying to shoehorn it into that, and that's why it leads to that. But they don't have the accountability, like you said. They don't have the same ROE.
We need the ballistic engineered armored response counterattack truck to serve no-knock drug warrants.
Well, of course.
And to go out on the suicide calls of the guy that's standing on the bridge.
Yep.
Because driving up with an armored truck is
definitely
the best
helps
way to make
de-escalate.
sure that he doesn't
greatly
jump.
When someone is on their last legs, the first thing they want to see is a bunch of like stormtroopers coming out of a tank. That really brings down their stress level and helps to de-escalate things in a natural and intuitive way. No, I agree with you. I mean, if they should have the same rules of engagement, they should have that type of thing. You were asking about Joe Jorgensen, what it's like, basically backing someone else's policies. What I will say is this: when I got the nomination, one of the first things I did was go and start talking with Jo and with her team and looking at her website and going through her issues and everything else to see what were her policies. Because there are certainly things that even if I disagreed with it, I could spin it or just kind of downplay it or say I defer to her on those types of things. If there was something that was just egregious that I disagreed with, then I would have to say, I defer to Jo, but I personally don't agree with that or whatever. There's none of that. What has made this very easy is that Jo and I, when it comes to policy, are pretty much the same. I'm sure that there are, at least on the major things, we're pretty much the same. There may be small differences of opinion on stuff like that where I am more than happy to just defer to her on what that is. But one of the beauties of this campaign, and I believe that the delegates chose very well, is that we agree largely on the solutions to things. And really the only difference between us is just, the the way that we talk and you know who we are. You know, I mean, we're two unique individuals, and so we present things differently. And we have some overlap of appeal, but I think she's largely speaking to people who see chaos and want to return to normalcy and a sense of decency in the White House. I'm often largely speaking to people who want to burn this whole thing down. They hate all of it. They just want to burn it and start from scratch. And I'm trying to talk them off the ledge and say that we can actually reform things and make them better without having to destroy everything. But largely, we're both bringing those different groups to the same set of policies. And her policies, Joe's policies, this campaign's policies, are the libertarian platform applied to all of the different issues that we're facing.
Now, I know that when Joe Biden, and this is sort of changing gears a little bit, when Joe Biden officially announced that Kamala Prosecutor Harris is his vice presidential selection, and of course the R's and D's, you know, everything's just gabbled through of this is who the president wants as their pick. Everybody in favor, everybody against. It doesn't matter what the sound is. It passes. But you sent out a tweet that I thought was hilarious, or somebody on your team sent out the tweet that says, because Mike Pence can't be on stage with Kamala Harris by himself, I volunteer to be the chaperone. As a chaperone.
Mother doesn't allow Mike to be on a stage. For those who don't know what we're talking about, Mike Pence, his wife, basically, he says this is his decision. He won't.
They're both alone. Very conservative, fundamentalist Christians.
I mean, this is a new one to me. That he won't be alone with an adult woman unless his wife or another man is present.
Yes.
It can't be another woman. It has to, because, you know, he could, I guess, go after both of them. I don't know. But so he needs to be another man. I think that that's really, really sexist on multiple fronts, but also and weird. And anyway, without giving too much of my opinion on that type of thing, I would be more than happy to be a chaperone. And I can be there to say, kids, you're both just terrible.
I love the Family Guy reference there. And having grown up in a fairly conservative area and having gone to a Southern Baptist church, I can tell you there are a lot of people that have the same position as Mike Pence, to where it's, yes, it does come across as sexist if you don't understand the reasoning. But it's something to where he doesn't want to put himself into a position where either he's tempted to do something inappropriate or that he's accused of having done something inappropriate.
The accused thing I get, I guess I get that. The tempted thing, so, I mean, I've been in rooms with women and my wife wasn't there, and at no point did I feel any temptation. And if anything had gone weird, I probably would have just left, or just made it very clear that that's not going to happen. So, I mean, maybe my level of self-control is higher than his. And again, I'm not going to disparage people who choose to do that. That's his choice. That's how he does it between him and his wife. My opinion on that is irrelevant because it's not my marriage.
And
I would be happy to serve as a chaperone.
I'm not, agreeing with his position. I'm just explaining
what it is, and that's fine. And that's fine. And I can
people
serve.
That didn't grow up around that, I could see where it would just not make any kind of sense.
Where it seems like kind of odd. Yeah. But here's the thing: that's his arrangement with him and his wife. That makes them happy. He hasn't been accused of anything, so there you go. Certainly removes that, and I can be there, and I can make it clear that at no point did he come on to Kamala Harris.
What exactly are the criteria for inclusion in the vice presidential debate? Because we know what the criteria for the presidential debate hosted by the Commission on Presidential Debates is. Is the criteria for vice president that the running mate was in the presidential debate?
Yeah, that's the vice presidential debate inclusion is that the presidential, and that's why they do the vice presidential debate right after the first presidential debate, because after each debate, they do a series of polling, and if theoretically either were to drop below 15%, they wouldn't be included anymore either. Although I have a feeling they would still find a way to include the one that the Republican that dropped below 15 if they had to, just to have two people up there.
Right.
But the problem is, in this cycle, it's an entirely rigged system. So
Well,
even in
not
years,
just this cycle, every cycle.
it's every cycle. But what they've chosen to do in this cycle is not include us at all in the national polling, which is unprecedented. So
well,
we have
specifically in the 5 polls that the CPD is using,
right,
which is
yep.
generally what happened, where the CPD finds national polls that don't include anybody other than R&D.
Yep.
And then they pick those.
Yep. And this time around, just to make sure that they don't accidentally pick one, no one is including us. And this is happening at the same time, Darryl, that every single person I'm speaking to is saying that they are seeing more excitement for this campaign. I've spoken to many people who have been in this party since 1971 when it was founded, or shortly after it was founded. Every single one of them are saying that they are seeing more excitement for this campaign than they've seen for anyone ever before. And I don't say that to toot my own horn. I say that to say that there were years where we weren't even polling at 1%, where people even barely knew who we were, and they still included us in at least some of the polls. They are this time not including us in any of the national polls because, and I think it's very obvious why, it's for the same reason that if you look at the crosstabs of those polls, that anywhere from 10 to 15% are saying no or none of the above or other, which means they're possibly saying us,
right.
and or some other name. And I think that they know that if we were getting more attention, we'd easily get that 15. If we just were included in the polling, we'd more than likely get that 15% or more. Gary Johnson and Bill Weld were able to get 13% in one poll and 11% in 2 others. I think they know what would happen. I think right now, if you put a jelly sandwich as a third option, it would probably get at least 10%. So I think that the problem is that they know that if they even just include us in the polls, we would qualify, and that horrifies them because Joe Jorgensen, in between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, 2 men who can barely form a coherent sentence. The only thing they can do when they get up there is just lob insults at each other, and to have someone in between them who would say, yeah, you're both terrible. We recognize that. Now here are the solutions to fix the problems both of you and your parties created.
She would be the rose between 2 thorns, which is what one of the newspapers in South Carolina referred to her. Was that back in the 90s when she ran for like U.S. Senate or U.S. House? So we've got a question in the Zoom chat, and I forgot to mention, if you're watching on Facebook, I don't monitor the Facebook. So if you want to ask a question, you have to jump in the Zoom, darrellwperry.com/Zoom. Question here from Robert. He says, serious question. Although I'm curious what kind of jelly sandwich and what kind of peanut butter, because I prefer grape jelly and chunky peanut butter, but I'm willing to definitely take any kind of jelly sandwich over Joe Biden or Cheeto Jesus. Robert also says jelly sandwich gets my second vote, but he's says here.
And if you're in Maine, you can now choose with ranked choice voting. You'll be able to choose a jelly sandwich as your second choice.
Serious question here. Should we in the LP make campaign headway out of the fact that the 2 major parties have nominated old men on the 100th anniversary of the women's right to vote?
I think that it's important. I think it's a good idea to do the part that on the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage, that we're nominating a woman. And it's not the first time we've nominated women, but in this cycle, we're the only one putting up a woman. I'm not a huge fan of the, they're both old men thing, because I don't think that being old or a man is a disqualifier. So I think instead of focusing on the negative of their old men, instead focusing on, we're putting up an accomplished woman who didn't run as a vote for me because I'm a woman, but ran as, hey, listen, I have good ideas. I have demonstrated that I am able to operate and own a company. I've demonstrated that I have leadership skills and can lead from day one by giving people their power back, and that I have the solution, that our party has the solution to the problems that we're facing. And yes, she is a woman, and that is a powerful thing for people that have fought for women to have those glass ceilings removed. But I think that can be done without saying, oh, well, look at them, they're old and they're men. Because I think if our greatest pick were to be an old person who is a man, how does that make us look in the future?
Yeah. And I'm thinking to some degree, and of course, I'm not in the marketing team. I don't work for the campaign at all. My wife does work for the campaign. She's the phone banking and text banking volunteer coordinator, and she occasionally puts me to work. But aside from that, I don't hold any position with the campaign.
Right.
But I'm wondering if the "She's with Us" hashtag and the T-shirts is some kind of way of at least acknowledging the 100th anniversary of the women's suffrage and sort of doing a play on the old Hillary thing of "I'm with her" that a lot of people wound up using
So it
right
actually,
after Joe got the nomination, and CNN says it was Russian bots.
yeah, and it wasn't Russian bots. We watched that happen in real time. There were people that were excited libertarians who, that was actually an entirely grassroots thing. That didn't start with the campaign. That started as a grassroots thing, in the same way that the Let Her Speak movement has been a grassroots thing. And people were coming out saying, well, I'm with her, meaning Joe Jorgensen. And then a lot of other libertarians started saying, actually, she's with us. She's running for us. She's not running expecting us to now, take the knee, bend the knee, and proclaim her to be the next, heir apparent to the nomination or to the presidency. She's running to run a hard fought race to win the White House. And so that's where "She's with Us" came from. And then now the campaign has adopted it as sort of an unofficial second slogan, "She's with us." So I mean, the whole thing with the Russian thing, and we see this all the time when Americans, and this goes back to the days of red baiting during the 40s and 50s. Whenever someone does or says something you don't like, we just go, "Oh, that's the Russians." It's like the ultimate boogeyman. Mom, the Russians are under my are under my bed. Please protect me. And now it's become it's interesting to watch the red baiting of the McCarthy era come back in our time often from the Democrats, but we see from the Republicans as well, where they'll say, "Oh, you're a Russian bot," and it's like, no, I'm a living, breathing human being who just happens to think completely differently from you, and that's okay.
Yeah, and I remember back in 2016 when I was seeking the Libertarian presidential nomination, being invited on RT America to participate in a presidential debate.
Mm-hmm.
And RT America hosting debates for the Libertarians and Green Party was cited by the FBI in 2017 as proof of Russian meddling in American elections.
It is a news station.
Yeah.
And yes, there are some people in it that I'm not saying that it's not at least partly a part of the Russian government, but it is a news station that had a debate.
Right.
That's it.
It's not much different than Voice of America.
Exactly. It's no different than Voice America or NPR for that matter. If we participated in an NPR debate, does that mean that we're narcs with the federal government? Like it is RT is an often cited news agency that has legitimate journalism in it, and they invited you to a debate.
Yeah.
What's the problem here?
Yeah, but let's go back to the Let Her Speak thing real quick. And I know that time's running out where you've got something else coming up at 7 o'clock.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I definitely want you out of here at least 10 minutes early.
Okay.
But going back to the Let Her Speak thing,
Mm-hmm.
If you look back 4 years, there were the people with, let Gary debate.
Let Gary debate, yeah.
But yet when he was invited to debates that did not include the Republican or Democrat, he refused to attend because he only wanted to debate the Republican and Democrat. Would either you or Dr. Jorgensen refuse to attend a debate that did not include the Republican and Democrat?
So here is what may have been the case with Gary. Is my understanding is that if you participate in a debate that is not part of the CPD debates, then they will not include you in the CPD debates. So if there were an opportunity or a likelihood that we would be able to be, or a possibility even, that we would be able to be in the big debate in front of, hundreds of millions of Americans, then and that's why we haven't done other debates so far, is because of that. Now, with that said, and I would have to take the cue from Joe and from her team, but if it becomes clear that we're just going to be completely shut out and we're not going to be able to be in these other debates, then I personally would have no problem participating in debates with I'm trying to remember her name now, Angela. She actually lives 2 hours from me. She's the Green Party VP candidate, and with Mark Charles's VP candidate, and with the Constitution VP candidate, and whomever else would be able to qualify for whatever debate system that was. I would personally have no problem with it, but I would have to defer to Joe and her team on what they would want us to do on that.
And I know in previous presidential elections, at least going back to 2012, the Free and Equal Foundation has hosted at least one presidential debate where they invite everybody that is on the ballot in enough states to theoretically win the electoral college, or who, as a combination of write-in status and on the ballot, have enough to where they could theoretically win.
Which seems to me to be the fairest way of doing this, especially when you consider how high the threshold is. Why not simply just let it be whoever is on enough ballots to actually be able to theoretically win the electoral college?
Right. And even
we know the answer to that, because they don't want the Republican or the Libertarian and Green Party up there with the Republicans and Democrats.
Right. And even Kanye, with all of his name recognition, having dropped $6 million of his own money, is only on the ballot in 9 states. Nine. With all of that money and name recognition. So he wouldn't even qualify for the 270 threshold of on ballot plus write-in.
On ballot plus write-in. And here's the good thing about Kanye's run, Darryl. The American people just saw that even if you are a literal billionaire who is one of the most well-known people on earth, unless you have a massive ground game in place, you are not going to even qualify, or unless you're running as a Republican, you will not be able to even be on the ballot, and the American people will not be allowed to check your name for president or Senate or Congress or governor or whatever else. So if nothing else, I hope that it showed the American people just how rigged this system is.
And I'm finally realizing that I'm starting to be an old man. I'm like at least middle-aged. So there's a whole generation of people that weren't alive when, or weren't politically aware when Ross Perot, another literal billionaire, spent a ton of money to get himself on all of the ballots in 1992. And this was before the CPD had the 15% threshold, where he was invited to the debates because the Republican and Democrat both agreed to have him there. But
what
otherwise, he wouldn't have been included. And if they had the 15% threshold, he would not have been included.
He would not have been included. But here's what happened, Darryl. He got on that debate stage, and the man that everyone had been making fun of, this squeaky little billionaire, I can't finish. He went on in a debate and immediately looked smarter than the other two. Coming out of that debate, a lot of people forget, he was leading in the polls. He was potentially going to win the White House. He dropped out for the flimsiest reasons. He claimed that someone was
he dropped out briefly over the summer. He
dropped out briefly over the summer.
Death threats to his daughter.
And then he came back. The reason he dropped out, I believe, is because he never wanted to win the thing. He just wanted to throw it against Bush because he hated George Bush with a visceral, deep and seething passion. The point of that is that getting on that debate stage and showing the American people that the emperor had no clothes and that the Republicrats were a bunch of nonsense almost won him the presidency, and probably would have won it for him if he hadn't dropped out. Joe Jorgensen is head and shoulders, not just literally, but in terms of her ability to speak, than Ross Perot is in terms of demonstrating what the problem is. And that's why they don't want her on that stage.
I think what cost Ross Perot the presidency was his vice presidential pick, because a lot of people don't remember Admiral Stockdale,
Yep.
who in the debate forgot to turn his hearing aid on, and he was on a live mic.
I couldn't hear anything. Yeah.
I can't hear you. Forgot to turn my hearing aid on and had
Yep.
to turn it on.
Mm.
And so it was just like, oh yeah, all right. That was sort of the Howard Dean rah! moment that just totally sunk his presidential campaign in 2004.
Yeah.
That from what I've heard, people that were at that rally couldn't hear a thing he was saying because it was just so loud they couldn't hear the speakers.
Yep.
That there's a question from Robert, who says, how do you suggest we break the third party can't win schema?
So, and after this, I will have to go because I have to
Yep.
get ready for the next interview. And I do appreciate you having me on, Darryl, and I appreciate everyone who's hanging out with us on Zoom and asking questions. So the short answer is we need to start winning. And the way that we start winning is by meeting people where they are, demonstrating that we care about their concerns, reflecting back that we're listening to them, and then show them how liberty is the solution to the problems that they're facing. Instead of systemizing things and telling them what our philosophy is and trying to present the rebuttal-proof argument of logic that's going to instantly turn them libertarian when they can't, find a way to logically rebut it. That's not how people work. It's not how you work. It's not how I work. The way you do it is you meet them where they are. You demonstrate that you actually care about their concerns. You validate the legitimacy of their concerns, and then you show them how we got here, and just as importantly, how to get out of it, how to fix these problems. We also have to deal with the so-called wasted vote narrative. Here's the fact: wasting your vote is voting for the people who created these problems. And every single election cycle, they show up and go, "Hey there, me again. I know I've created all these problems that you're facing, and I've made them worse when I'm not busy making new problems. But if you vote for me one more time, I'm going to fix all of this and everything's going to be better. And if you don't vote for me, you're going to get this schmuck behind me that I work with every day to screw you over. So you definitely got to vote for me or you're going to get my partner over here." And of course, he's over there saying the exact same thing to the other group of people.
Yeah, it's the whole good cop, bad cop sort of thing.
It is good cop, bad cop, except they both are just terrible cops.
Yeah.
And it's like bad cop and worse
all cops
cop.
are bastards.
It's bad cop versus worse cop. And here's the reality. Wasting your vote is voting for that nonsense. We are giving you an opportunity not to throw your vote away and to vote for something instead of against something, to vote for hope and actual real policy changes instead of voting out of fear. That is not voting. Voting libertarian is the only way not to throw your vote away.
Yeah, I'm reminded, and Spike, I know you need to leave, but I'm reminded of that play off of the scene from Idiocracy of libertarians can't win because people don't vote for them.
Yep.
Why don't people vote for them? Because they can't win.
Can't win, yeah.
But people would vote for them if they could win, but they don't because they can't. Well, like you're fulfilling your own prophecy there. And one thing.
And so the thing you have to do is make it so that the people who are voting for you are fine if you don't win because they don't want any of the other people to win, so they'll vote for you if no one else does. And the way you do that is by no longer watering down our message and presenting ourselves as the best of the Democrats and the best of the Republicans. We're not socially conservative, fiscally conservative and socially liberal. We are fiscally, socially, and in every other way libertarian. The Republicrats have created this problem. As long as they continue to win elections, they will make these problems worse. The only way to fix it is by voting libertarian, period.
Yeah. And one thing that definitely helps libertarians, not just at the presidential level, but also at the state level and lower, is donate to your candidates.
Yes.
Spike, what's the website?
Time, your money, everything else. Donate what you can. Help people to win election.
What's the website?
Our website is joe20.com. That's JO20.com. And also, if you want to hang out with us on social media and share our content, you can find Joe Jorgensen or Spike Cohen on literally everything.
And Spike, again, thank you for coming on. I will get the Facebook link sent over to somebody on the team so that whatever questions got asked in there can hopefully, possibly, maybe get answered at a later point. Sure. My website, darrylwperry.com. And if you go to darrylwperry.com/donate, Spike, what do you think people can do at darrylwperry.com/donate?
I think that they can help your campaign by donating to it.
Excellent. That's what I wanted to hear. Spike, thank you very much for coming in. Feel free to go ahead and jump out. I'm going to ramble
Thank you guys
for another couple of minutes.
Thank you guys for your time. Have a great evening. Let's go win this thing. Thanks, folks.
Yes. Again, the website for me, DarrylWPerry.com. The website for Joe and Spike is Joe20. That's J-O-20, the number's 20, Joe20.com. And again, I do these things every Thursday through the end of October. In 2 weeks, I have Matt Simon from the Marijuana Policy Project coming on. Next week, I'm not sure who I have on, but I'll wrangle somebody in. And then the first couple of weeks of October, I'm going to get some guests as well. I see questions here about, nope, not questions, just some statements. Yes, I will be at Pride on Saturday, the Queen City Pride in Manchester. So feel free to stop by. I am table number 6, right next to somebody selling some baked goods. So like I have the perfect location because everybody's going to get hungry and want to nibble something. And what can they do while they're waiting to get their nibbles? They can talk to me. So hope to see you there. And again, every Thursday I do the town halls, start at 6 o'clock. Like to go 30 to 60 minutes. We're at about 55 minutes right now. Again, everybody that jumped in on the Zoom, thank you. If you're watching on the Facebook or the YouTube, because these do get posted up onto the YouTube later, that's darrylwperry.com/YouTube. Feel free, give it a like, give it a subscribe, and then you get notified whenever there's new content. Again, thank you, everybody. Have a good night. I'll see you next week.